Hi, thank you for tuning into Stephen's World TV Radio. I'm your host, the Internet Guy. Our program is entitled Internet Freedom. I'd like to begin by warning you that the topics we'll be discussing are going to be thought-provoking. Many of the questions I'll be asking my guests will provide answers to questions you won't learn anywhere else. I'll be getting up close and personal with one of America's brightest minds, researcher Stephen Sindoni. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me on the show today.
Can you tell our viewers and listeners when you first realized you were having problems with your computer and the internet?
It all began in September of 1998 while vacationing in Montreal, Canada. Two men on a rainy night forced my car to the curb. I asked one of the men for identification, and he reluctantly showed me a badge. The badge was of the Israeli Mossad, which is the equivalent to our CIA. The next day, I told the U.S. Customs agents what had happened. Not long after returning to my home, I began having problems with my computer. It would, for no apparent reason, shut down, and X-rated pop-up windows would appear, forcing me to shut down the computer altogether.
Have you ever had a computer crash on you while you were on the internet where you lost a computer? And if so, what were you doing at the time when the incident occurred?
The date was in late December of 2001, and it happened not long after I was watching an evening news broadcast. In the broadcast, they had an all-points bulletin, the FBI did, and they were seeking 5 men who had illegally entered the United States from Canada. The men were wanted for questioning in the terrorist plot that brought down the World Trade Center on September 11th of 2001 of that same year. And after seeing the photos of the 5 men that were wanted for questioning, to my surprise, 2 of the 5 men were the men who had stopped me in Montreal on that rainy night in September of 1998. And it wasn't long after I viewed those photos on TV that I went on the internet, and in early of 2002, I lost a computer because I was researching the events surrounding 9/11 and the 5 men. And I was fairly certain that I had found the 5 men in the Bolo report that the FBI were looking for, where the 2 men met the description of the men who had stopped me in Montreal in September of 1998. I then captured the photo and saved it to my computer. And it wasn't long after finding the photos of the 2 men and saving it to my computer that my computer mysteriously shut down and the photos disappeared. Fortunately for me, I was able to get another computer to be able to get the photos again and put them on a flash drive and save them so that way I would have them.
Did the FBI ever find those men they were looking for, Stephen?
Well, interestingly enough, I had contacted the FBI the following day on December 28th of 2001 about the 2 men that I recognized from Montreal, and they told me that I had to be mistaken. So not long after, the Bolo report was buried, and it's pretty much like the lost sock in the dryer. Now you see it, now you don't. To give you and the listeners a better snapshot of what I'm explaining, picture the World Trade Center Tower number 7 coming down, but never getting hit by a plane. Just like a controlled demolition.
What operating system were you using when you lost that computer? Were you on Microsoft, Apple, or were you on Linux at the time?
I was using a Dell computer with Windows 2000 at the time. I wasn't aware of Apple computers or even Linux operating systems back in those days.
Stephen, have you ever had your email accessed by hackers?
Yes, I've had my email compromised by hackers many times, more times than I can count on my fingers and my toes combined. I was using Microsoft Hotmail and Yahoo Mail at the time, and many of my emails never reached their destination, and many people would not even be able to send me an email. It became a real nightmare. Cyber attack is no joking matter for anyone who's ever experienced it.
Stephen, have you ever had one of your passwords stolen or hacked?
If I can borrow a line from Rodney Dangerfield, it isn't easy being me. My computer passwords were stolen on a regular basis. I had to change passwords weekly and to make them as difficult as I could for the hackers to crack. Yes, unfortunately, I've even had my home broken into a number of times and had all of my passwords stolen.
That's terrible, Stephen. Based on what you experienced, having your passwords compromised and your computer attacked, what advice can you give our listening audience that they can do to help better protect their passwords and their internet and their computers?
Well, I'll start with Microsoft computers because over 90% of the world is using their software. Here's a list of steps that people can take to better ensure their internet freedom. They should start by setting up 3 types of accounts. Example, an administrative account, where only you use that when you want to go ahead and update your computer or to download needed software. Never use your administrator account to surf the internet. The second thing I would do was set up a user account with limited access, with no administrative privileges, just standard privileges. You can set up parental controls, and you can even regulate the hours that the account can be used. In that way, you ensure that if someone does hack you while you're on the internet, they cannot get into the administrative part of your computer. They will only be able to access that user account as the standard user and nothing more. And the third thing that I recommend using is a guest account. The guest account can be used to go on the internet, but it's very, very limited. It has less privileges than a standard user account. I like using my guest account to watch videos or listen to music, or even while I'm charging my computer. Whether you realize it or not, your computer can be hacked if it's plugged into a wall outlet without being connected to the internet.
Stephen, many of the new devices are now coming with Wi-Fi. It seems like they're making us all have to have Wi-Fi connections. What is your opinion on Wi-Fi?
My opinion on Wi-Fi? Well, for me, Wi-Fi is spy-fi. Everything you do can be hacked if you're on Wi-Fi. One of the things I strongly recommend, if you must go on a wireless network, then by all means set up a hidden network with at least 18 to 30 letters or numbers and characters, and change your hidden network password weekly. It may sound like a major pain in the you-know-what, but in the end, you won't get hacked.
What about all the Wi-Fi connections that you can get while you're out? Example, Starbucks, McDonald's, mall, or even an airport. Is it safe for you to use those wireless connections?
In my opinion, never use an open Wi-Fi connection at a Starbucks, McDonald's, mall, or even an airport. It's an open invitation for hackers. The safest way to surf the internet is with an Ethernet connection. For me, it's the only way.
Stephen, many of the search engines like Google track your habits, and they say, and they boast about it, that within 1 month they can tell where you're going to purchase items. Is there any other search engines that you recommend that we can use where we can't be tracked?
Yes, the search engine I recommend is DuckDuckGo.com. They don't sell your information and track your searching history. It is a secure browser. For an example, https://duck.com. The S in the URL makes the browser secure.
And Stephen, what are your thoughts regarding email encryption?
Since the arrival of the Edward Snowden era, email encryption no longer is effective. The government has made it almost impossible to use this type of a service.
Stephen, Internet security has been very, very important in the last year or so. And I'd like to ask you about secure browsers. Is there a browser that you recommend that a person can use if they wanted to go on the internet and be anonymous and be hidden?
Absolutely, yes. The company I strongly recommend for anonymity is a company called torproject.org. That's torproject.org. It's essentially a Tor browser that goes through a series of routers, at least 4 routers, before providing you with an untraceable IP address. Example, the address you receive might be in the Netherlands, so it won't be in Chicago, Illinois, where you're residing or wherever you're using the internet. It'll show up wherever the IP address is listed through the Tor browser. But having said that, I would like to add a word of caution. Should you try and use this browser to watch a YouTube video, it will disclose your IP address. Another thing, you may give up your IP address if you're checking your email. The last thing I recommend that you do is save checking your email for last. Read your email, and then if you must send out a reply or compose a new email, then sign out, create your letter offline, and then go back online and write the email. It's probably the easiest way to do it without having someone see you online. Spending as little time as possible on the internet is probably your best bet. Bad things can happen if you're distracted. It's better to be proactive than reactive.
Stephen, in your opinion, what is the best computer to use nowadays? What is the best operating system? Which is the one that you prefer and why?
Well, I would have to say Linux is better than Windows. Linux files don't have to be defragged. Windows must be defragged because things slow down. Linux systems get very few viruses. I think they've got 8 viruses in total since their inception. All viruses require root access. There is no door to get into a Linux computer. Linux doesn't need antivirus, but yet you could put one on there, but it doesn't need one. Linux can update their entire system with one click. Windows, or even Apple, only updates one app at a time. Linux updates all of your programs on a regular basis, and you can do it automatically. Linux doesn't need to be rebooted to close down. It closes down and starts up very, very quickly. A Windows server has no security, so what I call that is a hacker's delight. And Linux has much better security. Apple and Windows can be remotely accessed. And even now recently, I believe that iCloud has been compromised for Apple, so even Apple's reputation has now been tarnished. I've heard recently that they have over 1,000 holes in the Apple software system that can be found by hackers. So not very promising. Doesn't make you feel very good if you're going to go out and buy a Windows computer. Linux can be downloaded to multiple computers, so you don't need to buy additional licenses for Linux software. And you can get the DVD online, you can burn it and put it on your operating system. The sound quality, once you do that, is better on a Linux. So it's better to be on Linux, that's my opinion.
I've been told there are a number of different Linux operating systems that can be used. There's Mint, there's Ubuntu, and I believe there's some others. Which one do you recommend, Stephen?
I recommend the Ubuntu system, and you can get that at ubuntu.com. That's ubuntu.com. The operating system now would be 14.10, and you can get it and download it and burn it onto a DVD and be able to put it on your computer. And the download instructions are fairly straightforward and easy. You can even set up a partition and split your computer and allocate how much you want to dedicate for your Ubuntu system and how much you want to allocate for your Windows system or your Apple system. So it's that easy.
Are there tutorials available on the Ubuntu system that I can watch to help me learn how to use the operating system?
Yes, there are tutorials within the software you can read after you download it. You can also find videos on YouTube listed under Ubuntu. I recommend downloading the videos and watching them to get up to speed on the operating system. Anything Windows can do, Ubuntu can do. And just about anything you can do on an Apple computer, Ubuntu can also do. Invest some time and learn the Ubuntu operating system, and you'll save a great deal of money and be able to have internet freedom. Once you try Ubuntu, you'll never go back to the Matrix. You'll be glad you did. I certainly am.
Well, Stephen, you've given us a lot to think about here today on this program, and I'd like to thank you for coming on and sharing with us this mountain of information that you've provided. You have been very helpful and insightful. This information is needed in this day and age that we live in, and I am very, very fortunate to have had you come on today to share these things with our listening and viewing audience. So again, thank you, Stephen.
You are quite welcome.
Stephen, can you give out your websites for our listening and viewing audience?
I sure can. I can be reached on youtube.com. I've got a site called Sindoni Productions. I've got a second site, Webflix Guy, and I have a third site, Stephen's World TV. And I've got 2 or 3 websites. You can go to SindoniProductions.com or Stephen'sWorldTV.com or GoogleSindoni.com. So those are quite a bit of places that you can find my videos on. I probably have at least 800 videos or more on the internet that you can watch for free. So there's quite a bit of things out there for everyone to see, watch, and learn a little bit about who I am and some of the things that I produce. And in closing, I'd like to thank you, the viewers, the listening audience, who give me the passion to do what I do. And I'm like a weeble. I wobble, but I don't fall down. So for those of you out there who are haters, remember, I don't write the news. I don't broadcast the news. I don't even read the news. All my stories are genuinely from my heart. They're from my walk of life. They are things that I learn on my research. And like the umpire who makes the call at a baseball game, when the dust settles, 99.9% of the times, he's made the right call. So again, thank you all for listening, and thank you for having me, Internet Guy.
Well, there you have it, Stephen Sindoni, up close and personal. I'd like to thank everyone for watching and listening to Internet Freedom. As always, I'm your host, the Internet Guy.